Hey everyone! Today I have with me Nadene Reynolds. She is the Director for Career Foundations at the University of Florida, go Gators, at the University of Florida Career Connections Center. She is responsible for leadership of the industry relations and career engagement teams to simultaneously cultivate business and industry relationships and education and prepare UF candidates. Welcome to the show, Nadene.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, now that is a massive initiative that you have here for yourself. Let's break that down. What does that mean? What is your when you walk into the office, what is your why? What are you going for on a daily basis?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. So at the University of Florida, the Career Connection Center is not just a place of just resume reviews. We are concerned with being that conduit that creates the synergy and helps students move from where they are to where they want to be, as far as their career interests and what they know about themselves and moving forward. Within the last year, we're under a new leader. We have a new senior leader, Jeanette Glover. And one of the things she looked at is our office structure. So in traditional career service offices, you've got what would be the student side, where they're focused on delivering student services. And then you have the employer side, and they're focused on delivering employer services and getting more employers to recruit at UF. What we've done, and the team that I have the opportunity to lead, is we've integrated the team. So now it's one team. It's the Career Foundations area. And we look at how do we systematically move students through the career development process, or what we call move them through a career action plan, and connect them with employers moving through. So we recognize that it's not just deciding on a major and doing an internship or doing undergraduate research and then pop, I get a job. There are mindsets, developmental mindsets that students need to move through, and it's not linear. It can happen in different ways and places. And we recognize the importance of connecting students with industry earlier and throughout that entire process. So industry relations historically in career services is, are we having career fairs and getting job postings? And do we have employers coming and doing info sessions to talk about the interview process or even hosting interviews? They're not separate at the University of Florida. We put them together to benefit both our employers who need to recruit top talent, but also to our students who need to figure out and find their place and then make it happen. That's what Career Foundation is. And the why is, it's simultaneous. I'm really driven by supporting students. College and life and growing up is hard enough as it is. Mm-hmm. And it's hard to figure out what you want to do, how you want to do it, and how that relates to a major and potential career or industry options. But our office makes it easier, I think, for students because we help them through that developmental process, but we also help them build a bridge to see how they can translate and make that happen before graduation. You don't have to wait until your senior year, your final semester to figure it out. So we try to kind of systematically weave in career development into the process. Ultimately, I want it to be really hard for a UF student to graduate without knowing exactly, what their chosen career is, and have the ability to demonstrate the competencies and knowledge that they've gained as a student here, and then be able to do it successfully. So whether it's graduate school admission or professional school or full-time work or starting your own business, I'm here because I want to make it hard for UF graduates to not leave here with that sense of purpose and direction.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. You're a rock star.
My team.
I think that's the idea. We go to college, to have these experiences, but at the end of the day, we're looking to figure out what it is that we want and being able to connect what it is that we want to an industry and understand that industry. I think I see so many times that when I talk to graduates or students today, they're not really even aware of what is out there, what is possible. And so the fact that you're integrating that and these organizations get to connect directly with the students, and students can get to be exposed to more companies that are out there, not just these 1% big brand name companies. Sometimes I ask people, I'm like, name 5 companies, right off the top of your head.
Exactly.
And the first companies you're going to name are going to be like Google, Facebook, Apple.
Yeah, they're consumer brands. They're not necessarily, and that's one of the things that we work with our employers on, the industry relations area, is helping the organizations realize that you need to have an employer brand, not just a product brand. And that's very, very different. When you think of students, like, where do you want to work and what do you want to do? They can name top organizations because of the consumer brand, but they don't understand how that translates to the employer brand. Students say, I want to make a difference, or I want a company that's innovative, that's going to advance me. Well, there are several organizations that will do that. It's not just the top 10 largest ones that you can name or the ones that have the most, advertising dollars. They're small and regional. They're nonprofit. They're municipalities. They're agencies. They're bureaus that will deliver what you want. So, one of the pieces of the industry relations area of the Career Foundations area that I serve is helping employers understand that and doing a better job of communicating that employer brand so students, so they can see themselves there. It's one of the best jobs on campus, hands down.
I want to hear about your career journey, but before we get into that, you talked a little bit about, the student that's coming to you. I want to know, what's the one big trend that you see that students are coming to you, and what is the biggest question that they have when it comes to career? I know that's tough to kind of, boil it down to that one question, but in terms of how do I connect my career to something that is regional or municipality or something that's not these big companies, how do they get started there?
That's such an interesting question. Unfair.
I know I asked a question within a question. I'm so sorry.
You sure did. And I don't think it's one question. So at the University of Florida, we're a Research One land grant institution. We've got 50,000 plus phenomenal students. And our office serves all students. So we're not limited to undergraduate. We'll serve professional and graduate students as well. And I think they they're asking one of four questions. I don't think I can say it's one question.
Okay, that's fair.
Asking, help me figure out what I want to do and what I'm good at.
Mm-hmm.
Asking, how do I get experience to figure out if I want to do this, right? Sometimes they're just asking for affirmation. Is this even possible? Because they don't know what's possible. And then the other thing is, all right, I have an idea of what I want to do, but I don't know how to do it. And we created a framework, our career action plan that, been in this field for 20 years, almost 20 years. So we created a framework that simplifies that process. It's to learn about yourself and career options. It's build experience. It's develop professionally, and then prepare for your next step. Whether it's a first semester freshman, or it's a transfer student who has completed, 30 or 60 credits at another institution, they could be asking the same questions. I even see the same thing with our PhD students or our law, students in law or a medical or graduate program. They're asking the same questions. It's, career development is a developmental process. So I can't say that they're asking one question, but they're asking questions that fall in similar buckets. And no matter where a student finds themselves or question they're presenting, we can help them lay out a plan to work through the process. So their academic study, we can help them kind of consider things that they should do along the way to test and affirm, to develop professionally, to engage with people in industry, to clarify and confirm what they want to do, and then learn how to execute the plan that they're developing for themselves. And it can be short-term or long-term, and we do it based on the student's learning style and needs. Some people have to make a 10-year plan. They have to know everything before they can take the first step. And some people just need, a centimeter of direction, and they're willing to do it. And they can only do that, and then they move to the next step. And we understand that as a large institution, there's not one size fits all. So we have a universal design approach to helping students become career ready.
Yeah. And I think what's so key is, it is career development for a reason. It's not just you walk into the career services office and you're going to have a career overnight or define everything in that moment, right? It's a process. And so I think it's so important that listeners know they can come to you, that you're a resource on their campus when they don't even know anything about the direction that they want to go in. It doesn't necessarily be I'm ready to connect with an organization. But then when you do have an idea of the kind of impact that you want to make or what you find is your passion or your purpose, that you can then come into career services and say, okay, well, now how do I make that connection? What is possible for me? And you help them see that. Well, I think that's amazing. Okay, well, so describe a day in your life as a director for career engagement at UF.
A day in my life, it starts the day before, actually, kind of summarizing a couple of to-dos or things that I need to pay attention to. When I come in the morning, I usually confirm my schedule. I don't have it handy right now, but I have a week sheet that I kind of made up for myself. So I know my schedule as far as meetings and things that are concerned. And sometimes our priorities shift, and I need to be agile to respond to those needs. At least have an idea of where I'm supposed to be when.
Are you a digital calendar person, or do you need to have your calendar like on your desk?
I'm a paper person.
Oh, me too. Yeah.
So
Okay.
here's my sheet. It's got everything that's going on, and on the back, because I work with so many staff members, as I think about them,
Oh, I love that.
that one staff member. So things that I need to say to them, or if I have a meeting coming up that week or next week, I put it on there so I don't forget.
Okay, so for those listening to the audio, can you describe exactly what this is? Because she's holding up this orange sheet that's down into days of the week.
Yeah, so I just tape, literally, it's so fancy. I tape 2 pieces of paper together, and 8.5 sheet by 11s, and I make them color paper, and I change the color every week. So this week's orange, blue, and sometimes yellow. And on one side, it's like an accordion fold, and I have each day of the week, Monday through Friday. And because it's, I can get 3 columns per page. This other column, the last column, is just things that I need to do or want to do or wish that if I had superhuman strength and productivity, I could get done, or things for the next week. That's on the inside. And on the outside, it's, meetings. I have set meetings with staff members or team members. If it's just something I need to remember or address, I kind of write it down because I don't want to forget. There are times I'm just not at my desk for multiple hours. And if I'm in consecutive meetings, I don't want to miss something. It's too easy to do that. So it's kind of one of the systems that I have become accustomed to using, try to keep it all together. So yeah.
I love that. You got to get creative, you got to find what works for you.
You have to find what works with you. I love some of my staff members. They're into some electronic pieces, and they have like calendars, and they're just so good in paper or print. And I had to find that works with me. They tease me about it, but it works.
Hey, I'm a big fan of the notebook. I have my notebook and my list that I look at every day. Otherwise, I feel like I start getting very distracted, and I'm going off into like other projects that I didn't intend to go.
Yeah, helps me stay
that day.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're in meetings a lot. You're helping with. What would yesterday look like for you?
I don't even remember yesterday. Is that bad? Yesterday, Wednesdays are great days. So I'll just go through because I've got the sheet. So every other Wednesday, we have a staff meeting. That's our entire staff. So I manage the career foundations area, and I have a counterpart that manages our career and industry engagement area. And those are staff members who spend half of their time in the career center, but they also spend the other half of their time embedded in a particular college or area to directly serve or customize our services. So they are spread out across a number of different colleges, and we have 2 that work in housing and residence education. So while we know there's some general things that are consistent across all careers and industry, we also realize that it's important to meet students where they are and to customize based on some of the majors or industries that they're considering. So we've kind of got, in our office, we have like we're a hybrid model career center. So some either do straight career foundations or some do that embedded model. We're like, we need both. Our institution is too large and diverse. So that's what we do. So we have the entire staff come together every other Wednesday in a staff meeting, and that was an hour and a half. Some presentations of new programs and structures, talking about language, updates where administrative things are concerned. We always have good news, celebrate things. And then I had a quick lunch errand, early lunch errand. And then I had a meeting about exploration. So there are some key services that we want to launch. I need to understand where we are in terms of that project, how it's moving. I had a quick unexpected meeting to talk about our graduation survey and some conversations. So each semester at UF, we have a fall, spring, and summer survey where we ask students between a window of time about 3 weeks before graduation and 3 weeks after what their graduation outcomes or their expected plans are. So looking through that, and then
that's so interesting. Wait, I want to hear about that. Like, what do you gain from that? Like, what have you noticed?
Quite a bit of information. So all students who are graduating, once graduation is certified, and it's a number of offices that we work with, we ask a series of questions to understand what they did while they were here, what kind of experiences were beneficial, what they did, what their intended plans are. So Some students want to start a business right after school, and others plan on starting a family or going into full-time work or graduate and professional studies. So we gauge what is your intended outcome or your next anticipated step after graduation, and where are you in securing that? So we're able to start to tell the picture of what helps students reach their goals while they're here at the University of Florida. So it's administered every fall, spring, and summer. And the next one that's going to be administering for our summer graduates, we have to just verify some of the questions that were going to be added or not added or adjusted to make sure that we are getting the cleanest information. It's been a wonderful process for us to come back and share with the institution to say, this is what we see. We see students in this discipline actively looking for employment before graduation, or we see these students not. Why is that happening, and does that help or hinder? The only challenge with our current administration of the graduation survey is it only captures a window of time. So about 3 weeks before graduation and 3 weeks after graduation. And we know that it might take time for our students to pick, choose, or refuse an opportunity. So they may not have the final say in what they're doing. So we know students may be going through an interview process, but they haven't accepted an opportunity, and it might have happened 4 weeks after graduation. That's something that we'd like to work on and clean up, but it's been extremely informative, and we've been able to do it for a number of years. It's exciting. Graduation survey.
Yeah. Well, what do you think students are really good at, and what do you think students struggle with?
Pardon me?
What do you think students are really good at, and what do you feel students are struggling with?
In terms of
when they get to that graduation point.
Whoa, that's your questions, Amanda.
Or like a latest trend, like that you noticed with this latest survey.
It's a deep question because we've got several thousand students who are graduating. And
I know, that's tough.
in different categories. You have students, if they have been intentional during their time here at UF, they have a good sense of who they are and what they want. They're engaged with faculty members, staff members, alumni, people in industry, and they can kind of sense where they are in this continuum, or they have a very direct path and know exactly where they want to go. And we have some students that fall in that category. We have students that may have teetered on their intentionality of clarifying their interest in their purpose or their direction. And for some, graduation is scary. It's not just graduating and completing the grade. That idea of commencement is frightening because they may have very cloudy perspective or unclear perspective of what they want to do, what they can do, or if they can do it well. And that hurts if that happens, but we can still help them. And then we have others who, at the last minute, because maybe they are becoming more intentional as graduation approaches, they realize, oh, wait a minute, what I thought I wanted to do is not at all what I want to do. And now they're like, oh no, I want to change my major, or I have to go back to school. And that's not necessarily the case. Sometimes they need to engage with industry, alumni, and have time for reflection to clarify what they want to do. So I think, at least where UF is concerned, they're really good at being resilient. Whether they have to fake it till they make it or they can do it, I think they're able to be resilient. I think students can be good at that. I think what they're not as good at is asking for help, admitting a need that I might feel stuck. I might be changing my mind. I am unsure. I don't know if all students are good at asking for that help in order to leverage the resources that are available to them to be their best version of themselves.
I completely agree with that. Why do you think that is? Why are we so afraid to ask for help?
I think that's a really, I have my own suspicions, but I think, in society, I don't want to blame social media, but, there's this air of not keeping it real. When they post something, how many photos did it take for you before you posted that image? And one student was like 67, and I was like, what? Who has time for that? Exactly. They want to put on the best self or the best show or this, version of themselves. And I was like, I don't want you to project what it would be. I want you to be it. And if you are in a place where you need help, that's not a surprise to us. It's not admitting failure. It's asking for directions. So if you have an idea of where you want to go, or you know where you want to go, but you might be a little lost, you stop and ask for directions. I mean, you pull up, GPS or some sort of map thing to figure out where it is. And I think asking for direction or support where career service is concerned is the same thing. It's just clarifying directions. It's not admitting that there's failure. And I don't know why students interpret a lack of direction or unclarity as failure, but in talking to them over the years, they say, I chose the wrong major, or I did the wrong thing. And I was like, no, you didn't. They don't understand how to translate the knowledge and skills that they've gained as a benefit. They see it as a deficit. So I don't know, some of it's social media, some of it is societal. Some of it can be a UF thing. I mean, the students that we admit and have here, they're top notch.
Yeah, high achieving. Oh, I totally know what that feels like.
Friends across the country, or colleagues in career services, some of them are experiencing some of the same thing. It's like, I don't want to admit failure or not knowing. And I'm like, it's just, let us help you.
Yeah. I mean, well, because who wants to admit failure?
Or just not knowing. I don't think it's failure. Failure. One of my favorite students I worked with was a PhD student, third year. I'll say the major, sorry, college of liberal arts and sciences, chemistry. And they came to us because they had already decided that they are not going to continue with their PhD program. Already decided. It's like a 3.9 grade point average. I know. I was like, what are you kidding? Just get it so they can call you doctor. But he was very adamant. He's like, I know I don't want to do this. I had been weighing this for my entire year. For my health, I'm not going to continue. So I'm coming to you to figure out what else I can do. And they ended up working with me, or a staff member they kind of referred to work with me. And we sat down and had a great conversation, pretty quick. And you'll never guess what he wanted to do instead.
What?
Event planning.
Okay. Was he event planning for like his cohort?
Better, for the institution. So I guess one of his principal investigators, or some of the research that he was on, or the department head, department chair that he was working under, manages or coordinates an international chemists, international chemist conference. So for the last 2 years, this phenomenal student was working on clearing visas, getting, proposals, grant things, all kind of things, the logistics, all of the things that other people didn't want to do. He was nailing it. And then in further conversation, I realized that he had extensive experience in event planning, in marketing, in promotion through various things throughout his undergrad. And we were able to transform that CV, that was a phenomenal CV for a potential PhD candidate, into a phenomenal resume for someone who wanted to work in event planning. We talked about event planning, facility planning. And, when last I heard, they had accepted an opportunity to work directly in what they wanted, and they were able to translate. And, we talked about, I was like, I don't want you to leave feeling that this is a waste. You know what I mean? I think there was a part of that. And I was like, how is it a waste? Like, tell me how knowledge of chemistry won't be applied in some form or fashion in your life moving forward. But I think there's like a guilt there sometimes that students face, or, oh, it was a waste of time. And I don't think there's a waste of time. I think there's purpose in the process. And, I try to separate students feeling when they feel bad, but that was an exciting student. They came to us, they had already decided they're not continuing the program. Like, we had no part in that. But helping them figure out what they wanted to do and what they can do and how to translate their skills and interests, and for them to walk away realizing that it's okay to make that decision. And even talking about, well, okay, how are you going to talk to family? What about your peers in the program? Like, we want you to leave whole from this process and knowing that you're making the right decision for yourself at this time. So I hope he's doing well. It's been quite a while, but it's students like that that come to the realization, like, this is not what I want to do. It wasn't a waste of time. And there's a way to translate your skills and knowledge appropriately to get to where you want to be. And
Well, and while he was pursuing that degree, you know, the opportunities he took advantage of along the way and those experiences, I mean, he wouldn't have had those opportunities to be working at that international chemistry related conference had he not been pursuing that PhD and come to that
was just
realization.
one thing. Yeah, there were so many other things that he did, but you know, as we started to ask questions, well, tell me about times that you've done this. You know, he was able to see, oh my gosh, I have a whole, I was like, yeah, you have like a 2-page resume here. You only need 1 page right now for this. But it was just so beautiful to see that aha moment, to see the light on, to see the confidence, you know, when where there was doubt when, you know, he came in, and there was confidence and assurance, and he nailed it. Like those are the great days. Those are the great days.
Yeah, I think that's so funny. The resume has this fear connected to it. It's like, oh, I've got to sit down and write this and produce this one sheet about me. But if you just ask someone to tell you their story, that's your resume. I mean, you realize that it flows from you. If you just sat down and wrote about yourself and your experiences and where you lit up and what experiences you learned the most from and a time when you demonstrated your strengths, before you know it, you're writing your resume. It's just, we just have this fear of hearing this word, I think, that there's so much riding on this resume. But it's really just meant to be a reflection of your story. Well, okay, so I want to bring it back to you though. So how did you imagine your career path being back when you were in school? And you've had a very, I know your career journey. It's very linear, actually. You seem to have known and defined what you wanted and went after it pretty aggressively.
But not really.
Okay, all right. Well, so that's what I see on paper and what I hear. But let's get the real story.
Student affairs and career services found me. I don't think you are, in a 3rd grade class or kindergarten and say, I want to be a career services professional, or I want to be, director of career foundations. Like that just doesn't happen.
I actually used to, for my form of play, my sister and I used to create our own, like what we thought was an original concept, our own headhunting business. Like people came to us with resumes and we helped them find jobs. Okay. And we told our parents this and they're like, that's a real career. So
you're better than that. Yeah, I wasn't there. I think I want to be like a superhero, but okay. Helping people was always something that was important to me. Everyone needs help in something at some point in time. I was always drawn to the sciences, and I really was intrigued and passionate about genetics, the effects of genetics on, species selection and adjustment, and even diseases. So I thought I was going to go into something with genetic research. Like this is before the human genome process. Like, yeah, I won't even go how long I've been there. So I started off on this journey in sciences, biology/biochemistry, TUF as an undergrad student. Chemistry helped me realize that that's not the direction that I want to go in.
All it takes is that one class. All it takes is that one class. That was accounting for me. I was like,
it wasn't one, it was 2. Like I was a glutton. I was determined, but it's still a beautiful field to me. And every once in a while I still look up things and watch. But a passion doesn't have to be a career. It can be something that gives you relief or break or something. It doesn't have to be the thing that you do. So as a University of Florida student, I volunteered and I worked in different offices, which gave me different types of skills. I graduated and I left and I worked I ended up switching majors from a science background to communication because I realized what I like to do is simplify complicated information. So whether it's scientific research, to simplify it to communicate to lay people so they understand the value of importance, or to advocate for funding for it, or career development. A career development is a complex process. So how do I simplify it to make it easier for people to take advantage of it? I just realized that helping people, communicating or simplifying the complicated is something that I love. So I switched majors, graduated, worked in the industry for a while, and then a mentor who I knew from the University of Florida sent me this howdy email. That was the title I'll never forget. It says, applying for this job that's up here. Why would I want to move to Gainesville? It was the best decision I ever made. It was something that I wasn't looking for. It was something I said I would never do. I mean, Gainesville is a beautiful place, but it was different 20-something years ago, just so you know. And I applied for the job. It was interim. And I loved it. I loved helping students figure out who they are, what was important to them, how do they connect that to their major or their co-curricular experiences. How do I help them navigate the university and the institution in an efficient way? And how do I connect them to, they think they know this much. Students come in knowing this much about our
Yeah.
industry.
The binoculars. I like to call them the binoculars.
Out there. So how do we help them assess that and figure out how they want to start off? I love it. And then I've been able to work in career services. I started off in the marketing promotions area and operations, but that led to me working in employer development, starting UF's first employer development area, where we actively identified industries that had capacity to hire our students, but weren't actively recruiting. And helped me move up in that area, and then eventually move into the area that makes my heart sing. It's the student piece, that career engagement. But I love both of them. So this career foundations role, it's one of the best. It puts both of those things together. I can
see you light up when you talk about it. You can hear it in your voice too.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that it's a linear path. It found me. And I think one of the theoretical underpinnings of our work here at the Career Connection Center at UF is, the chaos theory of careers. So we know that there's complexity. We know that there's chance. There are a lot of different things. And one of the things we try to teach our students is, you can have a plan. You can move intentionally forward, but you never know. I was not expecting that howdy email. And I took a chance. I took a risk. And I knew that whether it worked out or not, I knew how to translate my interests and ideas moving forward. And I wasn't closed to opportunities. And we want students to realize that, because honestly, a lot of the industry research is indicating that this generation, they're going to change not just jobs, but careers multiple times, more than any other generation previously. And if you think of technology, by the time a first-year student comes to UF, by the time they graduate in 4 years, there could be entire new bodies of industry that exist that did not exist when they were first-year students. So we need to teach them how to communicate the skills and knowledge that they gained and translate that into effective ways for their next step and multiple other steps in the future. So we're here, we're trying to teach them how to fish. And I can say that I did it. It's not always easy. So I guess I was a science geek turned communication and now student success advocate, in the career services area. So, yeah.
Yeah. It's only now you can connect all the dots and how,
I look back. Yep.
But I'm sure in the moment there was a lot of the confusion or feeling like, especially in that feeling when you weren't doing well in a class and you're trying to persevere. But it also sounds like you're multi-passionate. And I think that we forget to recognize that you can love helping people and you can be passionate about the sciences. And it doesn't mean that you're going to necessarily go in all of those directions.
Right. Just because you like to write and you're a good English major doesn't mean you have to just be an author or an English major or an English teacher. There's so many ways that you can translate that skill, that interest or passion into multiple industries. And then again, I always ask students, is this something that you want to do where work is concerned, or is this something that you want to have as a part of your play?
Yeah.
That refreshes you to keep you going to get back on a Monday. And some students are shocked. They never even thought of that. Do you want to make a living living your dream, or do you want to have work that allows you to pursue your dream in a way? So we take different approaches to help students understand life and work. What does work mean? What does play mean? How do you balance the two? Does it need to be a part of both? And it's great.
So Nadene, tell me about the object you brought and how it reflects your passion.
I have a pine cone.
Okay.
And I don't know why, but I like to collect pine cones. And I have 2 in my office right now. I have a few in my home.
And that's a massive pine cone. And it's beautiful.
It's massive. It's at least 6 inches, this one. And I think it shrank a little bit from the first time that I got it. I think pine cones, like people, come in different shapes and sizes. And I think they have the opportunity to produce, I don't hope, they have the opportunity to grow into something mighty. And even if it falls to the ground from the tree, right, an unexpected fall or shift or adjustment, it's still so very beautiful. I think they're interesting because they're fragile, they're strong, but they're also fragile. I love the fact that they can be decorated. So I think of students as they wear or as they don different career paths or opportunities. You know, when you're in kindergarten, you like dip a pine cone into glitter, or like you know, spray glitter glue or whatever it is. I don't know. I think it represents hope and growth. I like the size and shape. It's something that I have in my office. And when I look at students, I see so much potential. I don't know why, but pine cones to me have always represented potential. So that's the object that I have, pine cones. I love pine cones. I love people. I love the potential. I love the complexity. I think it's important to remember that they're fragile. And I think that they have the opportunity to become, you know, phenomenal trees that offer shelter or fruit or something else. And if that's not the purpose for the pine cone, they offer phenomenal directions or art projects or, you know, multi-purpose. So that's where I am, pine cones.
Yeah, they're as complex as us. Oh, I love that metaphor. And I think that's beautiful, and that you keep it in your office and you can look to it and you have a little piece of nature right there.
Yes.
But it's also an art form in a way, the way you talk about it, and all the different things and the possibilities that it could be.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what's one piece of advice that you'd like to give college students, something that they can take with them today after listening to you?
Ask for directions.
Yeah.
I think it's important to assess where you are and dream about where you want to be. And it's not one singular dream. So ask for directions. If you have 7 different options that you imagine yourself pursuing, it doesn't mean that you can't do all of them at some point in time by the end of your life. So ask for directions. You know, talk to people and say, I'm interested in this and this and this and this and this. And don't be afraid to ask. Talk to them about, you know, how do you see this working? Do you know anything about this? Do you know anyone who works in this field? So I would say ask for direction. If you're at a college or universities, you generally have a career services center, and all University of Florida students come and ask us, you know, have quick conversations, use the resources. But I think for those who are nearing the end of their college career, UF alumni have access to our services within 1 year of graduation for one-on-one services. But post-graduation, they also have access to other services, or all of our online services or career fairs. But I think asking for directions is extremely important, and recognize that your path or intended path may change, and that's okay. I mean, we are complex people. There's not one right way to live out and have a fulfilling career in life. So ask for directions, no matter where you are. If you know exactly where you're going and how long it's going to take, or if you want to change, you want to look at alternate routes, just ask for directions.
I love that point, because I talk about in my book about courageous connections, right? And when you make those courageous connections, when you reach out to someone that has been that is in a field that you desire, that is doing something that you think is cool, you ask them how they got to where they are. That's really asking for directions, like you're saying. I love that. And I mean, I can think of times in my life where, when I first was like, I want to make a magazine, I went to the Entrepreneurship Center on campus and I said, how do I get started? I spoke to the art director of the Washington Spaces magazine that I'd interned at and said, okay, what's the composition of this magazine? What percentage should be advertising? Which percentage should be articles and design? And how do I know what kind of spreads to do? And how to, what do I make that up of, and which printing houses should I reach out to, and how do I get a quote? And ask directions of people that have been there before you. I mean, that's the best way to learn.
Yeah, I mean, I feel this way. How do you feel? Did you feel that? Is that normal? Normalizing it. It can be how to do something, or how did you get through this difficulty? The first time that you you move away from home. Like, there's so many ways that you can ask for direction. We're here to help. So
well, I love that. All right. Well, I want to encourage everyone listening today to go back to this question of, what are you projecting? So what are you projecting that you think that you want other people to know about you, but maybe that you don't necessarily have all together? So what are you projecting? And instead, how can you ask for directions? So I want you to take some time and reflect on that. I know we're all doing it. We're all taking, a whole photo shoot before we decide to publish that one photo, like Nadene said. So what is it that you're trying to put out there? Like, I've got it all together, right? Like, yeah, I wish I could tell everyone, like, I've got the #1 podcast out there. unfortunately for me, like you can access ratings. You can see that this is not the number one yet, right?
Yeah.
But I can't front and pretend that I have it all together. You can see I'm on episode, whichever episode I'm on at the time, how long I've been doing this. So I want you to think about what you're projecting, and then I want you to go back to the point of what you can ask for directions on. So stop projecting and start asking questions to actually achieve what it is that you are putting out there that you want and that you desire. Well, thank you so much for being on the show, Nadene. It was a pleasure.
You're welcome, Amanda. It was an honor. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah. And everyone, thank you so much for listening. I am so excited to be part of your career journey and help you make it more intentional and help you connect what you enjoy doing to your career so you can make a larger impact and so that there is that ripple effect around you in your life and in the world. Thank you again for listening. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me at amanda@findyourpassioncareer.com. You can even ask a question for one of my future guests, and I'll feature you on the podcast. Thanks again for tuning in. And if you're feeling inspired, I hope that you'll leave a review. That helps the podcast become more found and discoverable. And thanks so much. And yeah, I can't wait to hear how you start asking for directions and start figuring out what it is that you want to do. All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye.